Welcome back to the home page, but today we are going to look at the coach function. This is where we go to start holding ourselves accountable to ourselves. The process consists of a range of questions. The system ships with a number of questions preset. These can be changed or modified as you wish. The structure of the question is simple. The question itself, a category, this is totally optional, a frequency, this is an important one. This tells the system how often to ask this question, and it is measured in days. A useful hint here is by changing a frequency to 0, the system will then determine not to ask that question. So instead of deleting questions that you have added to your list, if you simply want to suspend it for a while, change the frequency to 0. You can tell the system whether you want the question asked at the start or the end of the day, and on what date you want that question to start being asked. You will notice an option here called Store Copy, and I will deal with that in a moment. There are two buttons, up and down, that enables you to move a question either up or down in the list. This is simply so that you can determine what sequence the questions must be asked in. To add a new question, click on New and enter the question. I will just type and tell it to ask you daily, starting today. There's a category that doesn't matter, and now I will use the Store Copy function, and I will select a folder that I happen to know in the system called Stuff, and I want it asked at the start of day. The Store Copy in Folder option is a useful function if you want to track particular things that you're doing. In my case, I have a folder called Change, and I have a question that says, what will you change this week? Whenever I answer that question, the system automatically stores a copy of my answer in my folder called Change. Having added this question, you will see it doesn't show anywhere. Well, it does in fact. It's right at the bottom of the list. The reason for doing so is not to mess up whatever sequence you've set up for your questions, and you use the up or down arrow button at the top to decide where you want to position this question. In this case, I've moved it up to the top, and let's see what happens now. If I go to Start of Day, the system will present all questions that are due to be answered today. It tells me up here that there are 6 of them, and there's the first one. I can now go and answer, and I say anything, and select to go to the next question. In this case, I'm just going to step out and show you the review process. Any questions that have been answered can be seen under the review process. You can move forward and backwards through different days and produce reports on questions and answers. Now, you might recall the note I made about supplying a folder for a particular question. I selected Stuff, so we're going to have a look at Stuff, and we will see that there's my answer, anything. That's the one that I answered to the question. So simple as that. You set up your questions, determine how frequently you want them to be asked, whether you want those questions asked at the start and the end of the day, and whether you want to store a copy of it in any particular folder. I hope that was helpful, and goodbye to you.